Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie, and I mostly make videos surrounding topics such as music, makeup, as well as mental health. Today's video falls into mental health, essentially, however, it is related to LGBTQ+ issues. I have spoken a little bit on LGBT related matters on my channel before, and I have gone into detail about myself personally, more so in Get Ready With Me's, because it's easier that way. I'm doing my makeup, and that helps me to be a little distracted, so it's a little less anxiety inducing. As you can see today, I am not wearing makeup. But I actually just watched the episode from On Wednesdays We Wear Black podcast about Gender 101. My friend Stephanie recommended this to me. She knows I love Yasmin and look up to them a lot, so it was really cool to watch it for that reason. I don't have the best attention span in the world, so it was a lot to sit and listen, and my mom actually sat and listened in to some of it with me, which was really helpful. So I guess the best way to get into this and just my thoughts from what I heard in my personal reflection, which instead of sharing in therapy, because I don't feel like I should go to therapy right now and talk to a cis person about this, I want to talk to my camera and see how it goes. And I want to privately sort this out myself because I feel like there's some processes going on in my head that I may not completely understand yet, but I'm getting around to it. And I think what helps me the most is the peer support that I have from other LGBT friends, especially my friends who are trans or non-binary or somewhere in the trans or gender diverse umbrella. That is very helpful to me, immensely more so than, again, a cis mental health professional. But anyway, just to start it off, if you're new here and don't know, my name is Julie. I recently went back to Twitter and my Twitter handle is Jules Counseling. Jules is my nickname. I like it because of Juliet from the show Psych, which is one of my favorite shows. That's what Sean calls her as a nickname. And it's more gender neutral, so that's why I like it. And then that's also the backstory of why. So I'm fine with people addressing me that way there. And I don't know that I will change my name. Julie's still fine for now if you're curious, but I am non-binary. I've talked about how I've come out along the way, and I guess I was always curious about Yasmin's story, about how they came to be non-binary themselves, so it was very helpful for me to actually hear about their story in the podcast, and I related to a lot of it. And I also admit, just because I'm non-binary or just because I'm LGBT doesn't mean I know every single LGBT term and every single thing about LGBT matters, so it was really helpful for me to understand some of that as well. But I don't want to get off topic too much. I have a couple points that I came in after I listened, immediately wrote down, and just told my mom, I'm just going to talk to my camera. So the first piece to me is a huge one that Yasmin put this into words so that I could never articulate myself. So I'm someone who has PTSD. I also have BPD, and so because I have two trauma-based disorders, I deal with intensive dissociation. And there's different types of dissociation. I know some of my subscribers want me to make a video on derealization, which is a type where you're detached from your environment per se, and dissociation can be more general. And then there's also depersonalization, where we are detached from ourselves. We don't feel like ourselves. We look in the mirror and we don't know who that is. But there's another piece that gets in the way for people who are gender diverse, and that is gender dysphoria. And this is my experience. I am not speaking over other people, and again, I love that Yasmin made sure that they were not invalidating other people by speaking on their experience. But Yasmin said the same thing, that they look in a mirror and they see Yasmin, the public figure, right? And they see who everyone sees on the internet as an online personality, but they are detached from that and they don't know who they're looking at. So to me, that falls under depersonalization, and I'm not clinically assessing it per se, but I do see how that can be gender dysphoria related as well. And obviously I am not nearly a public figure. I don't have many followers, and I'm a little afraid of that happening someday, but I am out there on the internet, and I am fully out as non-binary to pretty much everyone that is in my real life as well as my online world, my online life as well. And gender dysphoria is something that is really hard to explain to people who don't go through it. And now I'm understanding why my dissociation has been so strong outside of trauma and things, where I just had no idea who I was. And identity disturbance is a big problem for me too, but it runs so much deeper because I am not a man, I am not a woman, and I am not a third gender. And I'm so glad that was clarified that non-binary is not a third gender. I am non-binary. And like Yasmin was explaining about agender, which I actually did not fully know this, that just means no gender. Gender is not part of it at all, and you can still be non-binary, and agender's kind of under it. Like non-binary is its own umbrella itself, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but that is my understanding. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is for me. And that all my life I hated being called she. I was disgusted by everything, like just in school, like, oh, we're gonna separate the girls and the boys. Why? I'm friends with the boys. I don't want to be with the girls. They bully me. They're mean to me. I don't relate to them at all. I don't understand why just because I have the same bits and parts as them, I have to be in the same groups as them, in the same spaces as them, because they make me uncomfortable too, and they make me feel like a freaking alien too, because it just never made sense to me. And we did not have access, I'm almost 30, we did not have access to this kind of education when I was young. There was talk of LGBT, and I came out as bisexual pretty early on in high school, and I kind of had an idea of that going on from a young age. But the gender identity was definitely a piece too. And I think it's important, which is my next point, of the differentiation between gender identity and gender expression. It's exactly as Yasmin said, gender identity is what is in your brain, how you feel about who you are in regard to gender inside your brain. And some people, gender expression goes along with that in all varying ways. And for some people, it doesn't. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. That is a personal decision. Just like pronouns, as they explained, are a personal decision. And I went on a similar path to them as well with that, where I was she/they, which is for more gender fluid people. But there are some non-binary people, because as I just recently learned, gender fluid is under the non-binary. I did that to accommodate everyone else. I wanted they, them from the beginning. But I figured that would be a good start until I realized everyone just still calls you she. So it was extremely infuriating that I was so brave and I came out and that was still happening. And I can perspective take and I can understand why that happens. And I can think back to my past and how I've misunderstood a lot of these things throughout the years, and how I'm starting to grow as an individual and change and understand LGBTQ plus matters better, because it's so important that I understand all of this. So when I think about my gender identity, I've already explained it, right? That I am non-binary. I definitely identify with the agender piece of non-binary. Gender is not part of my life. I hate it. I hate when people say stuff like, oh, I can't believe a woman did that. That sounds so sexist to me. I don't understand it. And another point they talked about was the International Women's Day and how some non-binary people actually wanted to be part of that and how others didn't. And Yasmin felt that they did not personally, and I was the same. But I also felt left out and weird. I didn't really want a day for myself. I more so agree with, yeah, non-binary people should be celebrated every day. And I felt left out, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it because a lot of my friends are women, and, you know, everyone was celebrating each other, and I was just sitting there like, well, I know who I am, but I don't know how we celebrate this, because a day for me doesn't make sense either. But again, I'm trailing off because I'm having a lot of thoughts. So essentially, the gender identity piece for me is intact. The gender expression piece is challenging. So my friend Amanda recently cut my hair, and she is good at alternative hairstyles, so it's a little shorter just because it's like more layered and stuff. But I'm someone who I know is always going to prefer long hair. I just do not like how short hair looks on myself. I do tend to like certain androgynous aspects, and this brings me up to another point because it's so funny. Val, my friend Val, hi Val, did not know that I was watching this podcast, and she was trying to help me with outfit ideas because I've been really struggling with clothes a lot. And she sent me a few androgynous presenting type clothes, you know, like button-up shirts and things like that that were pretty stylish. And I was just like, no. I was like, no, Val, no. And I love Val so much, and Val was trying to help me, and maybe she will help me find something, but I realized I probably do need to talk to another non-binary person about this and figuring out clothes, because for me, it's just hard. I do not want to wear dresses. I don't know that I want to wear skirts anymore. I have a couple times, and that's been all right. But dresses, there's always been some sort of gender dysphoria there, and something about it that just made me feel really uncomfortable and sexualized in a way that I did not want. And beyond that, you know, I'm wearing my Water Parks merch today, which is emo and alternative in my eyes, and anything emo, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'll wear that, but not if it's too feminine presenting. But I can't say that I want to be entirely androgynous. And again, this doesn't invalidate anything about my identity per se. It's just the gender expression piece But it also resonated with me what Yasmin was saying. I love wearing a baggy hoodie and just baggy sweatpants, putting the hood over my head, and I make a joke, oh, it's Jules. Jules is he/him, and no, I am not, and it's a poor joke, I know. But there's something about it that just makes me feel so comfortable. And I also feel very uncomfortable without makeup, and having this gender identity is so helpful to me because I don't feel like I'm expected to be made up, and then I can just be Jules. And then I can just be me, and then I don't have to present or appear or be a certain way to just be free to be who I am. And that was the conversation I was having with my mom about this, about how freeing it is to figure out your gender identity and to figure out who you really are and to break out of these gender binaries and just move on from them. So essentially, I guess the point to that is I'm still figuring out my gender expression, and it's just more so anything comfortable and emo and slightly baggy that isn't super form-fitting, because I do have some body image stuff that's separate from gender identity, but I'm sure they kind of correlate and go together, and that's hard. Another piece that was so importantly talked about was definitely the gender dysphoria of when you look at your body parts or do anything intimate and things like that and feel detached from it too, or like, ugh, or like feel disgusted. This is so personal, but I felt that way my whole life, and I didn't understand why. Like, I just always wished, like Yasmin said, like I was a Barbie doll, like I was pretty, I had nice hair and makeup, but like the rest of me was just blank, and that I didn't have those parts and it didn't matter. That makes so much sense. It was so validating to hear someone else say that, you know? Like, it just helped me to feel like this is just who I am. I'm not broken. I'm not sick. I mean, I have mental health issues, but when it comes to this is a specific thing, and this is about who I am. And for someone who identity is hard for me, understanding who I am has really just been life-changing for me. It really has. Beyond that, the piece about the binder, what Yasmin said, I am recovering from an ED as well, and that resonates with me too. I have ventured out and asked people about it, but that is why I don't. Although today I am wearing a sports bra, and that feels helpful to just suck everything in, even though it is a tad uncomfortable. It feels better looking down and personally not seeing as much. And this is an uncomfortable conversation for me to have, but it's much easier to talk to my camera, even though I'm going to put this out to the world, than a therapist who is cis, or people who are going to invalidate me or not understand. I think my other point, which I touched on already, is just knowing something was off about you in regard to gender from a young age, and I didn't really understand what it was. I just always felt different than other people, and like I said, being grouped with girls versus boys, and like not relating to certain feminine interests. And you can still identify as a woman and be interested in whatever you want. That is the fault of gender roles and stereotypes. And that I've talked about is a piece that made me realize who I was too, because in graduate school I did a lot of research on gender roles and stereotypes. And at first I was annoyed, angry, disgusted, and that just turned into such extreme disgust and a fit of rage, like such rage about it and the fact that they exist, knowing how harmful they can be to people. And I do not hate cis women and men by any means. I have many wonderful cis women and men in my life. I do not feel that way at all, but it is not for me. Nothing related to gender is for me. I know that I am Julie, I am a YouTuber, I am a therapist, I am emo, I love my boyfriend Dave very much, I'm bisexual, maybe pansexual something, I don't really know. I think I might have some asexual stuff, but anyway, I'm trailing off into all these identity things that my brain is going to, so I'm gonna move to the next point. So Yasmin made a good point, and the other hosts of the show as well, about the intentional transphobia versus it being more passive, like someone who is ignorant versus someone who is filled with hate or malicious intent. And I have a really hard time with this. I have been at my grandparents' a lot recently, and haven't wanted to be there and been misgendered a lot. And I really hate it when someone goes out of their way to just your name so they don't have to say your pronouns. Even though that comes from a place of ignorant and it's not malicious, it's very triggering and it hurts a lot. And I was telling my mom that the misgendering hurts the most when it comes from the people that are closest to me, like family, because that's who I seek acceptance and respect from the most. And I understand that you may slip up, and my mom has been trying so hard and been working so hard at respecting my pronouns, and allows me to correct her and understands why it's upsetting, because I waited a long time and I did this process gradually, and I'm just out of patience and I'm really frustrated. And I recognize that it's going to take people time, but personally, I am not going to put myself in situations, if I am able, where I'm around people who are going to invalidate this, because no one has before. And it's scary. I could put this video out there and get a transphobe in my comments, and that'd be so wonderful. So thank you. If you're going to be the person to do that, I'm just going to block you and delete your comment. I'm not going to give you the time of day, because you do not deserve a voice. I don't think that's free speech. I think that's just hate. That's different than someone's calling me she and going, oops, sorry, and correcting themselves. Even though it's frustrating for me, I can see a difference. And I think it was important for me to hear that point too. Another point that Yasmin was talking about was cis people asking questions about being non-binary, and that they are receptive to it and they love answering questions. But because of things online, people are afraid that they'll get called transphobic if they don't know something about the trans community, and that isn't entirely true. I think we all have to admit, like they did on the podcast, we may be a little ignorant to certain things, but we have to always be willing to learn and grow and adjust over time. And I don't know how I feel about that. I guess if it was like a close friend asking questions, it'd be okay, but I don't really like want to answer a bunch of questions about myself, because I'm still figuring myself out and it's uncomfortable. And I guess I'm just someone so easily invalidated. I'll feel invalidated seeing it. And this happened to me because last time I was on Twitter, I came out and I had someone like, great, I accept you, but can you tell me why you're non-binary? Because you look like a female. Like, they wanted to know. And I answered them like one time and got so triggered, and I ended up blocking them. I saw them on there again and I blocked them. Someone ended up coming at them and trying to explain everything for me, but I just could not do it. And I don't think every non-binary person is responsible for explaining who they are to other people and educating the public when there are a lot of resources out there. And there are people like Yasmin who are comfortable explaining these things. And there are other non-binary people who are always open to questions, or maybe in certain days. And I think, like they mentioned in the podcast, boundaries are going to assist you in your life, no matter what the topic is, no matter what kind of relationship it is. They are very important. So I guess that's where I stand. And my final piece, Yasmin was talking about their partner and his acceptance of them, and how they are just so open-minded. They were cool with it. They still like their bits, that kind of thing. And I don't want to speak for Dave and make Dave uncomfortable, but when I told my partner, I don't know that he fully understood, but that's okay. And he accepted me, and he didn't invalidate anything about me, and he's still attracted to me the same. He still loves me the same. He knows that I'm still Jules. I'm still me. This is who I am. And I feel like recently he's come around about it a lot more and made little cheeky things about, oh, look, like this non-binary thing, or this NB, this and that. And he has some friends who use either they, them, or she/they, etc. pronouns, so he's accustomed to it. And when he asks me questions, I am receptive to answering, because he is my best friend in the whole world, and I'm okay with answering him. And another person in my life that I appreciate their acceptance is my cousin Sam, because a lot of people in my family are so ignorant. They're so ignorant. They're so just like, no offense to conservative people, but they're just very insanely right. And they will never see the light of day when it comes to this kind of stuff, because religion and different aspects of their views just get in the way, because they've come from a different generation. And I am not going to expose myself to being around people like that, especially while a lot of this is new for me. I just feel like I need safe spaces, safe, inclusive spaces. And that's why I really like the internet, and why I really like Twitter, and why I barely ever friggin' leave my house. I think that's part of the agoraphobia and social anxiety too, for sure. And that's why I was terrified to come out and talk about these things, because I knew that it was just going to be another trigger, another stressor, another thing that people are just going to invalidate and bully me for. And that is really scary. I don't know that I am ready for that. But I want to stay strong as a non-binary person, and I want to be open and honest about who I am and how I feel about it, so that other people can be brave if they are ready. You are never forced to come out. I never want anyone to feel forced that they have to come out or speak honestly to the whole world like I am about who they are. But that's the point of my channel, is to just be Jules, to be me, to be authentically myself, to be real, to speak on how I feel, to speak on my thoughts and views on things. and admit that sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes I'm ignorant too. Just because I'm LGBT doesn't mean, woohoo, I have free pass. Like, goodness no, don't forget that I am white. There is so much that I do not know and need to learn. And I will tell you clinically, as a clinician, I have some gender diverse clients. They're my favorite clients in the whole world. I've realized that this is what I want to do clinically. I love working with LGBT people. Even if our lives are different or our identities are different, I still immensely relate a lot to my LGBT clients, even if they were cis, but they were bisexual, pansexual, gay, lesbian, whatever label or whatever identity it is. Anyone who's on the LGBTQ plus spectrum, I just feel so connected working with them. And there's something special about people who identify and take the time to figure out who they are. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to know a piece of who you are. And I'm just deeply appreciative of people who aren't afraid to be different than the norm and to be who they are. And hopefully one day this will be the norm and it will be more socially accepted, because this is an important topic and we should not invalidate people for it ever. It's really important as an ally, like Yasmin and friends said, to listen, to just be open to listen and learn and validate and have boundaries and respect no matter who you're talking to. Don't treat someone who's LGBT or non-binary any different than you did before you knew. They are still that same person. They are still your friend, loved one, partner, whoever they are. Just do your best to accept them. Even if it's hard for you, do your best. And I assure you that they'll be receptive to it to some extent. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. You can follow me on my socials down below. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is Jules Counseling with no underscore. And my Facebook page will be linked down below in the description box as well. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye all.